Hello, party people. Welcome back to AP World History, Unit 5. This is the second part of the second chapter. And guess what? We're still talking about the French Revolution. Yes. Today we're going to see kind of how the French Revolution will spread beyond France. And we're going to look at the other revolutions that are inspired by the French Revolution. So first we're going to look at the Haitian Revolution. Then we're going to take a look at some other European changes, and then we'll finally be done with talking about the French Revolution. I love talking about it, but it gets a little repetitive after a while. It's only so much you can say the Enlightenment inspired revolutions in the period between 1750 and 1900. So let's take a look at the Haitian Revolution. And we're going to see that this is one of the first anti-colonial movements led primarily by non-white people, by enslaved people, actually. So let's take a look. And actually, we're going to journey outside of France for a second and go over to the Caribbean. So let's look at the Haitian Revolution. What is causing this revolution? What's the context behind it? Well, the Haitian Revolution, as we are going to see in a second, much like other revolutions we have seen, is inspired by earlier revolutions. So the successes of the American Revolution, but also the political environment of change during the French Revolution, these things are going to inspire the colonists, or excuse me, I should say the people of color, people descendant from slaves in the French colony of Saint-Domingue to rebel against the French. So remember, the French owned colonies across the Caribbean. There are a few other French islands in the Caribbean at this time, but the most important and the biggest is the colony of Saint-Domingue. Saint-Domingue, that's roughly modern day Haiti. But the colony of Saint-Domingue, even though it was ruled over by white European colonists, by French by French colonists, I guess, a majority of the people in Saint-Domingue are people of color. And a majority of those people of color are enslaved people. However, as we're going to see in a second, these people of color, both of free descent and enslaved descent, are going to challenge the existing racial hierarchy and the French presence in the Caribbean. So, what is going to cause the Haitian Revolution? Well, it's mostly going to be the fact that initially the moderate French Revolution did not include those people of color. Because the Haitian Revolution begins at the same time as the French Revolution. The colonists in Haiti, white and black, are hearing about the changes in France. At this time, there is communication between the New World and the colonies, obviously. There is something we call print culture, meaning that news can travel very rapidly because of things like the printing press. So these political changes in France, the idea of having a government that respects natural rights, that's going to be something that people of color in Saint-Domingue are going to pick up on. Hey, you can grant people in France these basic rights. Why don't you extend those rights to people of color? Why don't you extend them, at the very least, to free people of color? But remember, one of the things that characterizes colonies in the New World is intense racial hierarchies. Who's at the bottom of the social hierarchy in Haiti, in Saint-Domingue? It's people of color. At the very bottom, it's enslaved people. But on the top, it's white colonists who make up a very small minority, and yet they control the economy, the colonial government, they control society as a whole almost, despite making up a very small part of the population. And actually, we are going to see And initially, the French Revolution is not going to extend those principles of natural rights to slaves or people of color. So actually, in 1791, because of the outrage of the fact the revolution hasn't abolished slavery in France's colonies, there's going to be this massive slave rebellion in 1791. And this massive slave rebellion is absolutely going to rock the colony of Saint-Domingue. And eventually, it's going to force the French Revolution to decide, in order to keep Saint-Domingue happy, in order to still have this very wealthy colony, we're going to abolish slavery. And thus, the French Revolution does abolish slavery. That's a cool thing. So seemingly, for now, the people in Saint-Domingue are happy. There's no more slavery. There's universal male suffrage. Men can vote regardless of race. It's only men, of course, but men can vote regardless of race. However, and things are a bit more complicated than I'm presenting, guess who's going to bring back slavery? Well, it's Napoleon. Napoleon, he did have some enlightened, inspired reforms, freedom of religion, for example. However, that being said, Napoleon's looking to make money out of Saint-Domingue. He believes the best way to make money for his new empire, your new empire, no, Napoleon is going to bring back slavery, and that's going to piss people, or I probably shouldn't have said that. It's going to make people upset in Saint-Domingue. We are going to see that this bringing back of slavery is going to make people of color and enslaved people realize France does not have our best interest at heart. So we're going to see that this reintroduction of slavery will start the Haitian War for Independence. And the leader of the War for Independence is a guy I'll show a picture of in the next slide, an individual by the name of François Dominique Toussaint L'Ouverture, or better known as Toussaint L'Ouverture. And he's kind of a George Washington figure. He was a formerly enslaved person who got his freedom by purchasing it. Then he became a property-owning man himself. He actually owned slaves himself, too. But he's going to realize that the French do not want to have fair representation for people of color. And thus, that's going to lead to a war for independence. And Haiti is going to get its independence, as we'll see. They'll literally change the name of Saint-Domingue to Haiti, which is a Native American name for that part of Hispaniola, actually. So why is the Haitian Revolution significant? Well, obviously, a new country being created, that's always important. But one of the biggest significances of all, this is something the AP wants you to understand, is that while the American War for Independence is the first anti-colonial war in modern history, the Haitian Revolution is the first anti-colonial war led by not white people, by non-white people, mostly by members of the lowest class of society, enslaved Africans, people of African descent in general. So it's a movement that is going to be mostly organized and pushed for by members of the lowest social class. That's something that's kind of different from the French and American revolutions. Both of these revolutions were led by middle-class property owners, white property owners. Whereas the Haitian Revolution is led for and intended for Black people, considered in this colonial society at the lowest social setting. And yet, much like the French Revolution, there is going to be a lot of political instability. France is not going to let Haiti go without a fight. France invades Haiti, Spain invades Haiti at one point, England invades Haiti. So there is going to be a lot of intervention in the Saint-Domingue colony in what will become Haiti. So there is going to be a violent war for independence, but there's also going to be a violent kind of reorganization of society. There is going to be, in what some historians call a massacre of that white minority. A lot of white planters, a lot of white former slave masters flee Haiti. Guess where they go? They go to the United States, where they, continue having slaves. But there is going to be actually a massacre of the remaining white population. The only exception are Polish people, weirdly enough, mostly because there was a group of Polish people that the French sent over to Haiti to fight the Haitian Revolution. And kind of these Polish people, they defect, they help the Haitians out, and then the Haitian government gives them the honorary status of being fellow people of color, actually, interestingly enough. But there will be massacres of people. But on top of that, the political situation after the Haitian Revolution is not going to immediately result in a republic. There's actually going to be a monarchy that's put in place in Haiti, led by this guy named Jean-Jacques Dessalines. And obviously, I did not say that right. So we don't automatically see a republic, even though this Haitian Revolution is inspired by the concept of natural rights and opposition to slavery. It's not going to immediately see a republic. But this republic, as we won't really talk about, but in general, is going to be very unstable. It's not able to pay back a lot of debts that it will have. And even to this day, there is a lot of turmoil in Haiti over paying back debts to the French, the former colonial overlords of Haiti. It's ridiculous. So we do see that there is this political instability whose effects still impact Haiti to this day. But another big impact of the Haitian Revolution is that the Haitian Revolution will almost immediately result in the abolition of slavery, a movement of independence led primarily by enslaved Africans is going to result in the ending of slavery. But that has impact well beyond the borders of Haiti itself. Because the fear of what could happen if you keep a certain group of people enslaved, the fear of the brutality of the Haitian Revolution is going to inspire other countries to abolish slavery. So countries across Latin America, not wanting to have a slave rebellion, they're going to get rid of slavery, actually, when they get their independence. The United States doesn't, as we all know. Cuba doesn't. Cuba's like the last Spanish colony in the New World. Brazil doesn't. But we do see that many Latin American countries will begin abolishing slavery because they don't want to have a slave rebellion on the same scale as the Haitian Revolution. So for all of these reasons, the Haitian Revolution is significant. And I want you to keep the Haitian Revolution kind of in the back of your mind when we talk about, in our 8th unit, decolonization in Africa and Asia. Because these movements in the 20th century are going to be inspired actually by the Haitian Revolution. Movements by people of color in Africa for independence are going to draw connections to the earlier Haitian Revolution. So that's a big significance thinking ahead to the 20th century. So you should be able to kind of answer, how did the French Revolution inspire the Haitian Revolution? Well, you could say that the fact the French Revolution didn't initially give rights to Black people, that led to the Haitian Revolution. But why is also the Haitian Revolution important? So that's Haiti right there. That's kind of our third revolution of our particular unit. Unfortunately, we can't spend that much time on it, but needless to say, it is the first non-white independence movement. But let's take a look at how the French Revolution will impact Europe just a bit more. Because as I said in our last presentation, the French Revolution will impact well beyond just France. And remember, why is that? It's because of Napoleon. Napoleon invaded basically half of Europe. And when he invaded, he introduced Enlightenment inspired reforms and the idea of nationalism. That's just something you have to know for this particular unit. Napoleon's big significance to European history is introducing the idea of nationalism to places like the German-speaking states, places like the Italian-speaking states. So let's look at kind of how Europe is going to reorganize after Napoleon is defeated. Napoleon's defeated at the Battle of Waterloo. All the countries of Europe basically hold him at gunpoint and say, we're going to kick you to a very small island in the Atlantic Ocean where you're going to die of stomach cancer. And that's what happens, basically. Napoleon is forced to leave France. He lives on a small island in the South Atlantic Ocean, and then he dies a few years later. But how is Europe going to reorganize after the French Revolution? Well, the French Revolution and the Napoleonic Wars, the wars Napoleon started, are going to have the impact of upsetting the power dynamic of Europe. France literally took over half of Europe. So, in order to kind of make it so that there is a more balanced share of power, we are going to see the different European absolute monarchies are going to get together and they're going to decide what Europe will look like after all of these wars. And they're going to get together in an attempt to preserve the institutions of monarchy across Europe. They're going to look for ways to strengthen the power of remaining absolute monarchs. And they're going to basically redraw the map of Europe at an event called the Congress of Vienna. And Euro talks about this like ad nauseum, at almost to the point where you're sick. But essentially, the Congress of Vienna is a conservative attempt to restore the monarchies of Europe, because Napoleon kicked out all the monarchs he invaded. And basically, we are going to see that monarchs will return to their quote unquote rightful positions across Europe. For example, in France, the Bourbons come back. Louis XVIII, who is the cousin of Louis XVI, he's put in charge. In Austria, the Austrian emperors return. The Habsburgs, actually, those guys that married their cousin, they come back. Germany is going to be reorganized into something called the German Confederation. So we are going to see there is an attempt to try and make the countries of Europe uphold monarchy. So there is going to be a redrawing of borders, keep it so that there is a balance of power. The old monarchies come back to Europe. The Spanish king will come back. The Portuguese kings will come back. They actually flee to Brazil, but we'll talk about that in the next presentation. However, the Congress of Vienna is important because people, meaning the middle class, are upset that the monarchies of Europe are back. Hey, wait a minute. There's an absolute monarchy again. Didn't we enjoy those basic natural rights because of the French Revolution? So we do see that kind of this conservative attempt to restore the monarchies of Europe is not going to work out, actually. We are going to see that in reaction to these absolute monarchs returning, there will be more revolutions who were inspired by the ideals of the French Revolution, the ideas of equality, liberty, fraternity, and nationalism. And that's going to lead to two different revolutions. There's the revolutions of 1830. I'm not going to talk about them at all. They're not important for our class. They're important for Euro. But the one that I will talk about is the revolutions of 1848. That's the one important for our understanding. And the revolutions of 1848 are important because they are going to be revolutions inspired not just by the Enlightenment, but ideas of creating nations based off shared cultural and language customs. Because as you might remember from our discussion of the Middle Ages, way back in Unit 1, certain countries don't actually exist just yet. So there is no single country for German speakers. There is no single country for Italian speakers. But the revolutions of 1848 are going to try and change that. And guess where they got the idea for nationalism from? From the French Revolution. And that brings us to the revolutions of 1848. And the revolutions of 1848 are not just one single revolution, but there's going to be different revolutions that will happen at the same time across Europe. They are unrelated in the sense that they are not planned to happen at the same time, but they do share similar goals of advancing democracy, having government middle class participation in government, and they want to create countries based on the principles of nationalism. So we are going to see these revolutions take place in France, actually. France is going to have yet another revolution. And this time, though, they're going to kick out the French monarch, a guy at this point named Louis Philippe, and they're going to bring about the Second French Republic. So there are some successes, as we'll see. There will be revolutions in Austria. There will be revolutions in what will become Germany and Italy. And the ones, Germany and Italy, those are really the most important for our understanding. Because Germany and Italy are not united countries. But in the revolutions of 1848, they attempt to become they attempt to become unified nations. German-speaking revolutionaries are saying all German states speak German and have a shared history. Shouldn't all the individual German-speaking states be one nation? Shouldn't all the individual Italian-speaking states be one nation? However, despite all of this highfalutin talk about revolution, these revolutions in 1848 mostly fail. Germany's not going to become united until 1871, I should say, and Italy's not going to become united until the 1860s. There are some successes, as we'll kind of see with France, but generally these revolutions are caused by, well, the inspiration of the Enlightenment, the inspiration of nationalism, but they're also going to happen because of economic problems. The French Revolution introduced the idea that the middle class can advance politically, that the middle class can lead revolutions. But something that is unique about the revolutions of 1848 is that they mostly are going to also involve working class people, peasants, farmers, urban factory workers. And these urban factory workers, urban poor people, they're really going to be the ones who push for this revolution. They are the ones who lead these revolutions, not necessarily middle class people, although they are involved. But there's greater involvement of working class people in the revolutions of 1848. And we do see that there are a lot of economic problems in Europe during the 1840s. In fact, some historians call the 1840s the Hungry 40s, because there are a lot of economic depressions going on. There's a depression going on, so an economic decline. There's the Irish potato famine, for example. There's a famine basically everywhere. And this is going to be a short-term cause of these revolutions of 1848. A long-term cause is nationalism and the Enlightenment. However, much like with the French Revolution, these governments of Europe are doing little to solve economic problems. So let's create a new democratic, Republican-style government. However, what are the results of these revolutions of 1848? Well, there will be some changes, actually. Some countries will institute changes to prevent revolutions from happening. They will grant some people the right to vote, middle class people in some cases. And we do actually see that the most successful 1848 revolution is in France. France becomes a republic again. Hooray! That's number 2 if you're keeping score at home. Unfortunately, this republic is very unstable, and guess what happens? You'll never believe it. France becomes an empire the second time. Literally, Napoleon's nephew, a guy named Louis Napoleon, takes over and becomes emperor of France. So there's a second French empire that we'll see fall later on. However, as I said before, these revolutions mostly fail. They are disorganized. There is brutal suppression by the governments of Europe who saw what the French monarchy failed at during the French Revolution. However, there is still going to be a political desire to create unified nations. So the movements to unify Germany will come out of the revolutions of 1848. Same thing with Italy. And we'll talk about the successes of these revolutions more in our 7th unit, actually. So be patient. Germany and Italy, they will become countries soon enough. However, the failures of these revolutions is going to push revolutionaries to say we need to be more radical in our goals if we want to succeed. And it's no surprise that 1848 is the same year as the publication as the Communist Manifesto. We'll talk about what socialism and communism are, but the failures of the 1848 revolutions are going to inspire new political philosophies like communism and socialism. And again, we will define what these mean more actually in this unit. So you would have watched that video right there, but probably the biggest influence of the 1848 revolutions is nationalism. And we've been kind of dancing around the topic of nationalism. What is it? Well, the nationalism essentially is something that will emerge because of the spread of the French Revolution, and it was a cause of the revolutions of 1848. But to provide yet another definition of nationalism, it's not just the idea that a nation should be made up of a people with a shared cultural identity, but it's also a belief that your cultural identity is superior to other people. So it's an extreme form of what we call patriotism. My nation should be unified under a shared cultural identity, and every other country has an inferior national identity. So the idea that nations should be built on ethnic lines, that's a component of nationalism, but also the idea of your country being superior to other countries. That's also a part of nationalism. And as you might already know, nationalism will be a big cause of wars in the 20th century, but we'll get there. Nationalism is helpful in bringing about unified nations like Germany and Italy, but nationalism will also help divide multi-ethnic countries. Countries like the Austrian Empire. Because if you have a country with different ethnicities that all believe they should be independent, that's going to lead to the downfall of empires that we'll talk about more in the future. All right. So you should be able to identify why the revolutions of 1848 are significant. What ideas are being introduced because of the revolutions of 1848? And I'm just going to say them right now. Ideas like socialism, communism, and nationalism. The failings of liberal revolution, that's going to inspire people to be more radical, to demand more radical change on behalf of working people. But also the idea a nation should be formed off of shared ethnic and cultural lines. That's a big product of these revolutions. So that wraps up that particular chapter right there. It was a shorter one, but it's very important to understand how the French Revolution will impact the future of Europe, and by extension, the rest of the world. Eventually, we do see that generally the middle class will come out on top. Eventually, monarchies will fall, and we will have representation of the middle class in government. So thank you for watching. Have a grand and wonderful day.